So I've been seeing this talking point echoed a lot lately, primarily on Reddit. But then yesterday I also came across this video by Saintontas. I don't know if I'm saying his channel's name right, where he talks about how Calcharo was like over nerfed from the beta and how he's a bad character now or how he sucks. And I just want to chime in on this one. Uh, like if he's right or not, or if he makes any valid points. And the first thing I noticed while watching the video is that he actually doesn't know how to play Calcharo at all. And this is not a knock on him, because it's a video game. If you don't know how to play a character, whatever, it doesn't really make a big difference when it comes to real life application of anything. So what I want to talk about here really is what kind of opinion are people in general interested in? Do they want informed or uninformed opinions? If you go to the gym, for example, and you're interested in building a bigger biceps, then do you ask the guy with noodle arms whether, bicep curls or chin-ups are good for your bicep? Or do you ask the guy who has arms the size of your head? Obviously, you're gonna ask the guy who looks jacked and looks like he knows what he's doing. Another thing I wanted to talk about is whether having playtime on a character is enough to form an informed opinion. And I would say it's most definitely not enough to form an informed opinion. So even though you might have been playing Calcharo since release, it doesn't matter, because if you're playing him wrong since release, your opinion still doesn't mean jack shit, right? And you can have your opinion, it's fine. Like, for example, if you look at the average 35-year-old guy who has been playing football since he's 13, he has 22 years of football experience under his belt. And then you look at Cristiano Ronaldo when he was 20, and he has 3 years of football experience under his belt. Whose opinion about football do you think matters more? The guy who supports North FC with Ngubu, or, Cristiano Ronaldo? I would say Cristiano Ronaldo, knows a lot more, even though he's only been playing for 3 years. And the other is if you have a guy who's playing League of Legends for 8 years and his heart stuck in gold, do people really give a fuck about his opinion? I don't think so. And again, this is not a knock on Saintontas or all the Redditors who are complaining about, Calcharo being bad. Because, again, as I said, it's a video game. It doesn't really matter if you're good or bad with a character. But all of those people, him included, are forming uninformed opinions. And this Calcharo bad circle jerk is basically it reminds me of what I see and hear about incels, who are always complaining about how, women are all trash, and, they keep affirming each other how it's never their fault and it's always the women. While in reality, the problem is not with the women, it's obviously with them. Because, if they started lifting, if they took better care of themselves, if they actually learned some skills so they become attractive people, then they wouldn't have any problems finding women for themselves. Or maybe they need to lower their standards a bit, but the point is that the problem is not with women, it's with them. And here the problem is not really with Calcharo, it's because you don't know how to play the fucking character. And in fighting games, for example, if you look at tier lists in fighting games, then whose opinion really matters there? Are people interested in XX Noob Killer 69's opinion, who goes 0-2 in pools every single tournament? No, nobody gives a fuck about what he has to say. People are interested in tournament players like Sonic Fox, Daigo, these people who put down results on the table and they show that, they have a good understanding of the game, they know how to play the characters that they're playing, and they know the matchups, and those are the people whose opinions others are generally interested in. But the interesting thing is that in gachas, this is not necessarily the case. Here, people tend to look up to, content creators and all that. And that's mostly because in gachas, it tends to be much less competitive, much less skill-based in most gachas. And even in the ones which do have competition or PvP or leaderboards, it tends to devolve into, you know, pay to win and whaling. Like whoever throws the most money at the game tends to end up winning in PvP or getting to the top of the leaderboards. So it's not really taken that seriously. And to go back to tier lists and fighting games, people tend to say that the biggest problem with Calcharo, or like one of the problems with Calcharo, is that he's really hard to use. And I would say that difficulty of use should never be a factor when it comes to evaluating a character's strength. Ease of use is different in the sense that if a character is really easy to use and still is strong, then that is a positive. But if a character is hard to use, that is never a negative in a, you know, tier list setting. You just have to say that, yeah, they're hard to use. Because if that was like a negative, then for example in Tekken games, every single Mishima would be low tier. Because to access like the strongest parts of their kit, you know, like combining Korean backdashes with wave dashes, getting electrics consistently, especially for characters like Kazuya who need like for their 14 frame punishes, you need to be able to like, you know, perfectly execute an electric from block. And like if you can't do that, then your character is not performing at the highest level. But when it comes to tier list discussions, people always assume that the character will perform at the highest level because it is just assumed that if you want to play a character, then you will put in the required amount of practice and effort to actually get the character to the highest level of play. And when it comes to Calcharo, for example, people are married to the idea that you have to play him with Yinlin in like a hyper carry team comp and that you're not supposed to swap out when he's in his ultimate form because he will lose the outro buff, which Saintontas actually talks about in the video. And that is completely wrong because that is not how you play the character at all if you want to play him optimally and actually access like, you know, his good DPS teams. The ideal way to play Calcharo is by focusing on a dual DPS team comp and quick swapping every single heavy attack, and you don't need to wait for the animation to like, you know, be midway through. As soon as he starts the attack, so before he does anything, like 0.01 seconds after he starts the animation, you can already quick swap. And this way you can get a lot more damage during the heavy attack than if you stay on him. Because first of all, the animation is... like the way the animation homes in on the enemy when you quick swap out and when you stay on field is different. So if you quick swap out, the animation will always home in on the enemy. And if you stay on the field, then sometimes it will just whiff. Sometimes you have to dodge cancel it, which ends up losing damage, again, as Saintontas says. So those are, you know, valid points, but it's like saying, you know, if you overtrain your bicep and then you put 200 pounds on the bar and try to do a bicep curl and you tear your bicep, then yeah, you shouldn't have done that because that's not how you want to train your bicep. And this is not how you want to play Calcharo. So obviously, you know, you will have to dodge cancel if you fuck up how you play him. Anyway. Mostly on Reddit, I've also seen people say, like, whenever I comment on these threads or, like, you know, reply to these comments talking about how Calcharo is bad, I see people say that I'm coping, that he does more damage than GN's hypercarry team. And I have a GN hypercarry team because he's my first main. I have GN fully built with double crit echoes. Every single echo on him has double crit, and I have GN's weapon. And I actually use GN's weapon on Calcharo. And at the same time, with my Calcharo quickswap dual DPS teams, I am doing more DPS than with my GN hypercarry team. Because I get faster clears on hologram bosses, and I get faster clears in Tower of Adversity. So just because everyone is parroting something doesn't make it true. If you have literal evidence in front of your eyes, and you still say that I'm just coping, then, you know, you're pretty much just, you know, a bit slow in the head maybe, and there's not a whole lot that people can do to help your peanut brain, but that's fine, you know, like, you know, not everyone can be smart enough to understand that empirical evidence often, you know, is worth a lot more than spreadsheet calculations. Speaking of spreadsheet calculations, the calculations they do for Calcharo rotations are, like, you know, completely not optimal. So obviously his spreadsheet damage will be lower if they're not calculating the correct, you know, multipliers and attacks in the rotation. But whatever. Like, you know, if you're at the point where you stopped believing your own eyes and your own ears and you don't look at empirical evidence and you only believe what the higher authority or what the hive mind tells you, then, you know, like, what can I say? You don't have critical thinking skills? That's fine. Like, you know, it's up to you how you live your life. Perfectly fine. Now, that said, Calcharo is not without any problems, but the real problems he has are not related to what Saintontas was talking about in his video, and is mostly not related to what most people on Reddit are complaining about when complaining about Calcharo. Like, he has two big problems. One of them is that his cinematic intro skill does not pause the timer in Tower of Adversity, which means that he loses time from his ultimate, like a lot of time, because the cinematic intro skill takes like 3 or 4 seconds to complete. And he also loses time from the timer, so that's a huge loss for him. Especially like if you get the cinematic intro from quick swapping in and out during his ultimate, then, you know, that's basically a reset at that point for certain floors, because you just lost a lot of DPS from your rotation. And the other bigger problem, but this is something which I don't think can be fixed, is that his stack gain during his ultimate is heavily reliant on how good your ping is. Because if you have a ping under 100, then it is very easy to do his optimal combo, which is, you know, in your ultimate form, you do basic attack 1, basic attack 2, and then after that you cancel it with a backwards dodge, and then you do basic attack 1, basic attack 2, and then you'll have 5 stacks already. And this is his optimal combo because it takes very little time, and you get your stacks really fast, and even if you're forced to dodge an attack or dodge counter once or twice, you'll still be able to get 3 full Death Messengers and 3 full quick swaps in during your ultimate, even with having to dodge counter. But if you have a ping above 100, like above 120 I would say, then this becomes impossible, because instead of 3 stacks, you now only gain 2 stacks from your basic attack 1 and basic attack 2. So this basically means that you can't actually do this combo on high ping, which means that your Calcharo will just suffer and have bad DPS compared to what he could have. Now again, like, as I said in the beginning, this is like just discussion about a video game, so it's not all that serious. It doesn't really matter in the end of the day. But I still wanted to give, like, you know, my thoughts on the subject and like my 2 cents on whether Calcharo is actually bad, or if it's actually the people playing Calcharo that are just mechanically unskilled. And so yeah, if you enjoyed the video, then subscribe, like, comment, whatever else. And I'm Dr. Misk. Until next time, peace!